My girlfriend tried to upstage my sister's graduation dinner, so I got a restraining order, blocked her, filed a police report over fraud, saved crystal-clear garage footage of her keying my car, and watched a judge ban her from me, my home, my job, and my family. Welcome back to AF Tales. Today's story is about what happened after I stopped arguing with a girlfriend who thought every event was her personal stage. As you listen, think about the moment you would have walked away. I am 27, and this whole thing started with a dress. Not just a dress, really. It started with entitlement, attention-seeking, and me ignoring what should have been obvious. I had been with Sienna for about a year and a half. She worked in fashion marketing, and to be fair, she always looked polished. When we first got with each other, I liked that about her. She was confident, stylish, and knew how to walk into a room like she belonged there. But after a while, I noticed that Sienna did not just enjoy attention. She needed it. Every event became a performance. Every gathering became a chance for her to stand out, even when the event had nothing to do with her. She wore white to other people's weddings, more than once. She dressed for a nightclub at casual parties. One time she wore a bikini top to my coworker's baby shower because it was, in her words, festival chic. I tried to talk to her about it gently. I would say maybe a funeral was not the place for a neon pink mini dress. Maybe my boss's retirement party was not the place for a see-through top. Every single time, I got the same answer. You're so controlling. I can wear whatever I want. Technically, she was right. She could wear whatever she wanted. That was the problem. She thought freedom from advice also meant freedom from consequences. That was one of the biggest red flags, and I kept brushing it off. Then my mom called with good news. My youngest sister, Bethany, had graduated from medical school. First doctor in our family. My mom planned a formal celebration dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. The kind of place with a dress code, waiters who explained every ingredient, and a room full of people dressed for the occasion. Mom made it clear this was a special night for Bethany. I passed that on to Sienna the same evening. I told her my mom was throwing Bethany a fancy graduation dinner on Sunday. I told her it was formal. I told her the restaurant had a dress code. I told her the whole family would be there. She barely looked up from her phone before getting annoyed. I heard you. God, why are you already trying to control what I wear? I told her I was just passing on what my mom had said. She told me she knew how to dress herself. At that point, I made a choice. I stopped arguing. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop protecting people from the results of their own behavior. Sunday came. I put on my best suit, the one I usually saved for weddings and job interviews. Sienna walked out of the bedroom, and I knew immediately this was going to go badly. She was wearing a metallic silver dress that looked like it belonged in a music video. It was extremely short, cut low, and clearly designed to get attention. She had on huge platform heels and full glam makeup. She looked ready for a camera, not a family dinner honoring a new doctor. She asked if she looked ready. Old me would have started a fight in the apartment. Old me would have tried one last warning. Instead, I looked at her and said, "Absolutely. You look memorable." She smiled and said she knew my family was going to die when they saw it. She even mentioned the dress had cost more than some people's rent. I told her I was sure they would have strong reactions. The drive there was quiet. She took selfies. I kept thinking about Bethany. 8 years of school, residency, stress, sacrifice. This was supposed to be her night. When we got to the restaurant, I could already see my family through the window. My mom was in an elegant navy dress. My dad was in his good suit. Bethany was in a burgundy cocktail dress and looked exactly like what she was, an accomplished young doctor standing at the start of her life. I held the door open for Sienna and said, "After you." She walked in like she was stepping onto a runway. The hostess did a double take. The room shifted. It was not full silence, but it was that hush that falls over a place when something clearly does not fit. Forks paused, conversations stalled. Heads turned. My family tried very hard to stay polite. My mom's smile froze. My dad focused very hard on his water glass. My older sister Grace leaned toward her husband. Bethany just stared. Sienna greeted everyone like she was arriving at her own event. Then the waiter came over almost immediately and explained that the restaurant had a dress code policy requiring appropriate coverage for all diners. Sienna actually laughed and said she was wearing a $3,000 dress. The waiter stayed calm. He said they had complimentary shawls available. She looked offended and said she was not wearing some gross communal shawl. That was when I spoke up and said they were just following policy. She turned to me and asked if I was taking their side. I told her there were no sides. It was just a dress code. Then I reminded her that she had said she knew how to dress herself. My mom tried to save the evening. She suggested the shawl might be nice. She even pretended it was chilly in the restaurant. It was not chilly. She was just trying to stop the train from going off the tracks. Sienna stood up and said she was being shamed for expressing herself. Bethany, who is one of the calmest people I know, spoke up very quietly. She just said they wanted to have dinner. Then Sienna made the moment unforgivable. She looked at my sister, at the woman we were all there to celebrate, and said, "Oh, so now the golden child speaks. Must be nice having everyone cater to you." That was the moment for me. It was not about the dress anymore. It was not even about embarrassment. It was about disrespect. At some point, a pattern stops being annoying and starts becoming character. I stood up and said, "Okay, we're leaving." She said we were not going anywhere because she had not even ordered yet. I told her, "Sienna, we're leaving now." She said I could not make her. I told her, "You're right. I can't, but I'm leaving," and I drove. "You can either come with me or figure out your own way home." Then I waited. She looked around the table like someone was going to back her up. No one did. My mom studied the menu. My dad checked his phone. Grace fixed her lip gloss. Bethany took a sip of water. My uncle waved the waiter over. Sienna called my family toxic, grabbed her purse, and stormed out. I turned to Bethany and apologized. I told her I would take Sienna home and come back. Bethany smiled and told me to sit down. She said Sienna had made her choice, so I sat down, and honestly, from that point on, the night became what it should have been from the start. We ordered dinner. We toasted Bethany. My dad gave a speech that made half the table cry. My mom had arranged for a special cake. The lights dimmed, the restaurant brought it out with sparklers, and other diners even applauded. My phone kept buzzing the whole time. I ignored it. When I got home around 11, Sienna was gone. Her key was on the counter with a note that said she was at Jade's and that I should not bother calling because I had shown my true colors. I did not call. The next morning, the text started. She said I had abandoned her. She said my family was classist. She said the restaurant was discriminatory. She demanded an apology. Then she announced she was coming over that night. She showed up at 7 with Jade and another friend, like she needed backup for a fight she had already started. Before she was fully inside the apartment, she accused me of humiliating her. I told her she had humiliated herself, and worse, she had tried to turn my sister's graduation dinner into a scene about herself. She claimed she did not know it was that big of a deal. I reminded her that I had told her. My mom had told her. The restaurant had told her. Then she tried to flip it on me and said I had set her up. I asked how I had set her up when I had told her it was formal and that the restaurant had a dress code. Jade jumped in and tried to say that was not specific enough. I told them both those were basic things adults understand. Sienna started crying and called me controlling again. She said I probably wanted this to happen, and that was where I finally stopped trying to explain myself. I told her I wanted to celebrate my sister becoming a doctor. She wanted attention. She got it. Then I said, "I'm done. We're over." She said I would regret it. I said, "Okay." She looked stunned, like I had broken some script she expected me to follow. Then I laid it out clearly. She had made everything about herself, insulted my family, called my sister the golden child at her own graduation dinner, and was now standing in my apartment yelling at me. So yes, we were done. She gathered the things she had slowly been moving into my place. Jade glared at me and said Sienna deserved better. I told her she was probably right, and that it was a good thing Sienna was free to find it. For about 2 weeks, that seemed like the end of it. Sienna told mutual friends I was controlling and manipulative, and that I had set her up to fail. I did not chase those rumors. The people who mattered knew what had happened. Bethany texted me the next day to thank me for handling it well. My mom even joked about Thanksgiving and said next time I should bring someone who understood the phrase appropriate attire preferred. I told her there would not be a next time with Sienna. I thought that was the end of it. It was not. After the breakup, I blocked Sienna everywhere and got on with my life. I joined a rec league basketball team. I caught up with friends I had let drift. I even went on a couple of casual dates. Things felt normal again. Then I got a call from my credit card company about unusual charges. Somebody had tried to buy $4,000 worth of designer clothes online using my card. The shipping address was Jade's apartment. That was the first moment I realized this was not just post-breakup drama. This had crossed into criminal behavior. I disputed the charges, canceled the card, and filed a police report. The detective told me it looked pretty simple, especially since the shipping address was not mine and I could show the relationship had ended weeks earlier. A couple of days later, Sienna sent an email to my work account. In it, she claimed I owed her $50,000 for her time and emotional labor during our relationship. She had attached an actual invoice. I am not kidding. A real invoice. It had line items like relationship management, social enhancement services, aesthetic improvements to living space, emotional support, event planning, and opportunity cost. She had even included a payment plan. If it had just come to me, I would have laughed and deleted it. But she had copied my boss, HR, and somehow even found my mom's work email and copied that too. My boss called me into his office and asked what on earth he was looking at. I explained everything. He stared at me for a second and then said my ex was creative, but also insane. HR was less amused. They had to document it because she had dragged the company into it. Then legal got involved when she sent a follow-up email threatening to sue the company for employing a narcissist and enabling emotional abuse. My mom handled it better than anyone. She hit reply all and sent Sienna her own invoice. It included charges for ruining Bethany's graduation dinner, therapy for the family after witnessing her behavior, dry cleaning for the restaurant shawl she had insulted, and a priceless charge for teaching her son to recognize red flags. That made me laugh harder than it should have. But the truth is, by then this whole thing had stopped being funny. A few days later, Sienna got into my apartment building somehow and started knocking on doors on my floor asking about me. She was telling neighbors we were engaged, which we were not, that I had stolen her grandmother's ring, and that she was pregnant, which she absolutely was not. My neighbor, Mrs. Guerrero, a retired teacher in her 70s who misses nothing, called me right away. She told me there was a crazy girl in a weird shiny outfit knocking on doors and claiming to be my fiancé. I told her to call the police. She had already done it. By the time I got home, the police had removed Sienna. She had tried to claim she lived there but could not produce a key, any ID with the address, or even the right apartment number. Building management issued a no trespass order and circulated her photo to staff. The next morning, I found my car had been keyed. I parked in a gated garage with cameras, so there was crystal clear footage of Sienna getting in with the garage clicker I had given her months earlier and keying my car at 3 in the morning. That video changed everything. That was not a misunderstanding. That was evidence. The detective sat me down and told me the situation was escalating fast. Credit card fraud, harassment, trespassing, and vandalism. He said I needed a restraining order yesterday, so I filed for one that afternoon. Based on the evidence, an emergency order was granted immediately and a court date was set for a permanent order. Then, because apparently the universe wanted one last joke. I ran into Sienna at the courthouse while she was there dealing with a ticket for parking in a handicapped space. The second she saw me, she started yelling about harassment and stalking in a courthouse full of officers. That did not help her case. My lawyer, who I had hired after the invoice stunt, talked with her lawyer in the hallway. It turned out Sienna was already in trouble over multiple things, including the fraud case, unpaid tickets, and now contempt after her courthouse outburst. Her lawyer asked if I would drop the fraud charges if Sienna agreed to the restraining order without a fight. I said no, because at some point, consequences are not cruelty, they are accountability. The hearing for the permanent order was the next day. Sienna showed up in a metallic gold pantsuit which somehow felt perfectly on brand. The judge reviewed everything: the attempted fraud, the emails, the trespassing, the vandalism, the harassment. Then Sienna tried one last defense. She argued that I had abused her by not providing adequate warnings about social expectations, specifically by not telling her how to dress for a family dinner. The judge actually paused and repeated it back to make sure he had heard her right. Then he said that was not abuse. That was her making poor choices. The restraining order was granted. She had to stay 500 feet away from me, my home, my workplace, and my family. Any violation would mean immediate arrest. Her lawyer whispered something urgent to her, and for once she stopped talking. That still was not the final chapter. Later, I found out Sienna lost her job in fashion marketing after her company learned she had been sending those threatening emails from her work computer. She also ended up facing fraud, vandalism, and trespassing issues. Eventually, my lawyer told me she took a plea deal on the fraud charges. She got probation and restitution. She had to pay back the attempted fraudulent charges and cover the damage to my car. The vandalism and trespassing got rolled into the deal. She also had to take anger management classes. The part that almost made me laugh again was that the anger management classes had a dress code. Business casual. You really cannot write it better than that. Since then, I have moved into a new apartment with better security, no shared garage access, and one less reason to look over my shoulder. Bethany is doing great. My family still jokes about metallic interruptions at Thanksgiving. Mrs. Guerrero has already tried to set me up with 3 nice girls who, in her words, dress appropriately. Looking back, the signs were all there. The constant need for attention, the inability to read a room, the habit of turning every event into a showcase. I mistook that for confidence. It was not confidence. It was selfishness with good styling. So here is what I took from all of this. First, when someone keeps calling you controlling for stating basic expectations, pay attention. Sometimes that word is not about control at all. Sometimes it is just a shield they use so they never have to hear no. Second, how a person behaves at other people's important moments tells you a lot. If they cannot let someone else have the spotlight for one night, that is not confidence. That is insecurity dressed up as self-expression. Third, when a breakup starts turning strange, document everything early. Save the emails. Keep the footage. File the reports. You do not need to wait until things get terrifying to start taking them seriously. Fourth, do not confuse consequences with cruelty. Letting someone face the results of their own choices is not abuse. It is reality. And fifth, the right relationship should bring peace, not constant damage control. If you are always managing chaos, that is not love. That is exhaustion. What would you have done at that dinner table? Would you have spoken up before we left the house? Or would you have done exactly what I did and let her choices speak for themselves? And have you ever dated someone who needed every room to revolve around them?